Hello. I think we're live, but we got about a minute to go here before we actually get started. It looks like Jenny is signed on. Can you hear me, Jenny? Go here. Okay, awesome. Okay, well, it's right at 9 o'clock. And we have some people from California tuning in, and we actually have some people from Florida who may be joining in a little bit. Had a little crossover there with a couple clubs. So welcome to all of our pre-PA club members. I'm Savannah. I'm a physician assistant in Georgia. I've been practicing for a couple years now. And I'm really excited to get to share with y'all about kind of my experiences and a little bit about my background and what my daily life looks like now that I'm a physician assistant. I'm happy to answer any questions about PA school, what it's like being a PA. I work in dermatology. I've done that since I graduated in 2014, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later. But I'm happy to answer any questions. You can put them in the live chat, and I'll answer those at the end. And I have a little slideshow that we'll go through, just kind of talking about how I got to this point, but also talking a little bit about the application process for PA school. I'm not sure how much y'all know about that, but I'll fill you in a little bit, and then we can go through some questions and just see what you guys are interested in. Okay, give a couple more minutes here, but it looks like we're good to go. So I'm going to screencast a presentation, and then if you guys can't see it or have any issues reading it, just let me know. All right, y'all should be able to see that. Okay, so for a little bit about myself, I'm currently in Augusta, Georgia. I was introduced to the PA profession when I was in high school. As a senior, I knew that I wanted to be involved in the medical field in some way, but I wasn't exactly sure what that looked like. And so it was actually my dad who came home from a doctor's appointment one day and told me that he had actually seen the physician assistant. And I had never heard of what a PA was, and he had printed out a whole folder of information for me. And so I looked at it a little bit, and it sounded like a good option, but I still wasn't completely sure. So in the fall, I went to the University of Georgia, and while I was there, especially during that first semester, I struggled with what I wanted to do. I was a biology major, and I considered a bunch of different paths, but I kept coming back to PA. I didn't want to be in school long enough to go to med school, and I didn't really feel like I could make that commitment at that point. And so I decided that I would pursue becoming a PA. So while I was in college, I did a bunch of shadowing. I got my CNA license and worked as a nursing assistant. I did my prerequisite courses, and then I also did some hospice volunteering. So the next slide here. So I applied to PA school in the summer between my junior and senior year. I knew that if possible, I wanted to start right after school. And I applied to the 4 programs that they had in Georgia. Here's my stats. Nothing too amazing. And my GRE here was on the previous GRE scale, so it's a little different now. And I didn't have a ton of healthcare hours. when I applied, I knew that 2 of the programs I was applying to, I didn't actually qualify for. I didn't have enough healthcare experience. One wanted 1,000 hours, and then one program wanted 2,000 hours. So my strategy there was to go ahead and apply, knowing that if I had to reapply the next year, they would see how dedicated I was to both becoming a PA and to their program. So at the 2 programs I was qualified for, I interviewed and I was accepted at both. And then I started at what was previously the Medical College of Georgia and is now called Augusta University in May 2012. And this is a little picture of some of the people in our class. We had 44 people total. In PA school, the big thing that you need to be ready for is just tons of information. You will learn so much in such a short period of time, and you've got to be able to take that information in and process it and try to learn it to the best of your abilities. There are still opportunities to have fun. We had an intramural flag football team, and we went on spring break trips. Some of my best friends come from PA school, so it's a really fun time, even though it is also very stressful. I actually got married in between the first and second year of PA school, which is something that's not really encouraged, but it was something that was important to me. And my husband is now a first-year resident in internal medicine. So if you have any questions about medical school or what that looks like, he was going down that path while I was on the PA school path. So I've kind of seen both sides. And then I graduated PA school after 27 months in 2014, and then I immediately started working in dermatology. A little bit more about PA school. Most programs are going to be 24 to 36 months. It's going to consist of a didactic year, which means that that's your classroom year. So my classroom year looked like being in class from 8 to 5 on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And then on Tuesday and Thursday, we would either have lectures for half a day or small group. And sometimes we would go into clinic as well. And so then after that full year, we went into our clinicals. And the way my school had it set up, we did 1 month rotations, and we had 12 of those. So each month we would move to a new place. When you're looking at PA schools and trying to choose one, some things you want to take into consideration are the location. You want to go somewhere where you're going to be happy. If you're not going to be happy at a program, it's probably not the right fit for you. The price, where I went at Augusta University, it was significantly cheaper because it was a public program. And so the other school I was accepted to would have been about 4 times as much money if I were to attend that program. And so the price of tuition and fees and cost of living plays a big role in the decision of what PA school to go to. The class size, ours was 44 students, and I felt like that was a perfect size. There are some schools that have a lot smaller classes with 20 students, and then ones that are larger with over 100 students. So you need to pick what's going to fit you the best. And then the different amenities that the program has to offer, or the facilities. So we had a full cadaver lab that we started with in the summer. We had a surgical suite that we could go practice things in that was dedicated to the PA program. Those are things that you just want to look at if that's important to you, especially kind of the cadaver lab. If that's something you want to do, look for a program that has that instead of just learning on models. So like I said, now I work in dermatology. The way I ended up there, I had actually shadowed in dermatology while I was in college. And I knew that I liked it. I knew that I liked the hands-on part of things, and that it was more variety than just skin checks all the time, and that there was some cool rashes and things you get to see and do in dermatology. So once I graduated, thankfully, a great position was open, and I was able to move into that spot and start working working there, and I've been there ever since. Week looks like I work Monday through Thursday from 8 to 5, and then on Fridays I work half days till 12. I'm pretty independent, and I have my own schedule, and I see about 35 patients a day. It's a good combination of medical, surgical, and cosmetic dermatology. I do all of my procedures that I feel comfortable with. If I ever feel uncomfortable with something, my supervising physician is there for me to talk to and ask questions, and she's always happy to peek her head in and look at patients if I need her to. We see all ages, from little babies to elderly people, and so it's a good variety. I get to kind of mix things up when I'm seeing rashes, and then I get to do Botox or filler. So a good combination that keeps things from getting too boring. One thing that I'm interested in is medical missions, and I actually recently got back from a trip to Kenya where it was a dermatology trip, and we set up clinic and did some screenings in schools. So that's what this picture is from a couple weeks ago. So to talk a little bit about applying to PA school, CASPA is the overall application website, and it opens every year at the end of April. And so that's something you kind of want to go ahead and start thinking about, getting all of your information together if you're thinking about applying. If you're not thinking about applying this year, you can start an account and just look at it so that when you do apply, you'll be ready to know what you're going to have to put in and have all the information prepared ahead of time. You'll need letters of recommendation, at least 3 up to 5. I recommend having one from a PA that you've either shadowed or worked with. And then people who know you well, the more personal, the better when it comes to those letters. You also want to have a list of your volunteer activities and your shadowing experience, and then any patient care or health care. Everyone always asks what the difference is in those two. So patient care experience is if you're actually interacting with patients directly, if you're providing care to them, if you're taking vital signs, something like a nursing assistant or a patient care technician, a medical assistant, an EMT. Healthcare experience, on the other hand, is when you're working in a healthcare setting, but you're not actually interacting with patients in a way where you're taking care of them. So this is more being a receptionist or working in billing and coding, something where you're learning about healthcare but not exactly about patients. So when it comes to medical scribing, some programs count that as patient care, and some programs count it as healthcare experience. So it just depends on where you're applying, so you'll need to check into that specifically. Other things that you'll need is your GRE score. If you decide to take the GRE, there are benefits to that. It increases the amount of programs you can apply to. You'll need transcripts for every program you've attended, and you'll have to enter all of your grades into CASPA, where it'll calculate a whole bunch of different GPAs, but the main one being your overall GPA and your science GPA. That's what the schools are looking for. And GPA is the #1 thing that schools are looking for, and the #1 thing that determines success in PA school. So you do want your GPA to meet the minimum and to be as high as it can. And then your personal statement. So when it comes to writing your essay, usually the prompt is around the same subject, something like, tell me about your motivations to becoming a PA, or why have you decided to pursue the PA profession? Basically, why do you want to be a PA? You're limited to 5,000 characters, which is a little over a page single-spaced. And that's your chance to really tell them about yourself, tell them what makes you unique, and show your passion. And that personal statement is what's going to get you your interview. So you want it to be as good as possible. When it comes to editing your personal statement, you really want a PA to read it if possible, because they know what the PA programs are looking for, and they're going to be able to give you the best feedback. Be really cautious with letting someone you don't know well read your essay. I've seen a lot on Facebook groups and different websites where you can post your essay and have it edited, and that's not really a safe option. You don't want to run into any plagiarism or someone stealing your essay if it's really good. So make sure you're only sharing it with people that you trust. My number one tip is to apply early. The sooner the better. Most programs at this point do rolling admissions, and that means that as soon as your application is there, they're going to look at it and they are going to be making decisions about whether or not they want to interview you, and then from there whether or not they want to accept you. So have everything ready as soon as you can and get that in as quick as possible, because that will increase your chances of acceptance greatly. So that's my biggest tip. So why do I care about pre-PA stuff? When I was applying to PA school, I just really felt like I had trouble finding the information I was looking for, and I felt like I didn't have a great resource to go to. So once I graduated, I started a website called the PA Platform. On there, I post blog posts all the time having to do with things I'm asked about or things that I feel like are important for pre-PA students to know. And so I try to update that regularly. I also offer services, assessments. I now work with a website called My PA Resource for personal statement reviews. And then I also offer mock interviews. So if you don't have a PA to interview with and practice with, you can always, I'm happy to help. And then I'm happy to answer any questions, whether now or later. You can send me any questions to savannah@thepaplatform.com, and I will definitely get back with you on those. I'm also on Instagram at the PA Platform. And that I'm pretty good about answering comments and trying to post regularly on there so that you can see kind of a day-to-day of what I do. So now I don't know if we had many people tuning in, but if anyone has any questions, you can add them in the chat and I will answer those. And then I'll get this off the screen. Okay, there we go. Let me move over here. Okay, Camelia says, how are you able to maintain a good balance with your personal life when you were in PA school, particularly didactic year? That is something that I had to learn how to do. I would say my first 2 semesters, I was engaged. I was living at home with my parents, but I would not talk about anything having to do with the wedding. I would only study, and I would not even go out to eat with them. They would want me to go grab dinner, and I would say, no, I have to study. And so I really regret that, because then when it came to spring semester, I kind of loosened up and I realized that 30 minutes of studying wasn't going to affect my progress that much. And it was more important for me to give myself some time and relax a little bit than to just cram studying all the time. And so actually once I loosened up, I did a little bit better. And I think my friends helped me too. They, I don't love working out, but they encouraged me to work out. So I had 2 friends who would drag me to the gym with them and make me do their workouts. And I'm really thankful for that, because I think it gave me a break. It helped me to form really great friendships that I have to this day. They're 2 of my best friends. And yeah, it definitely took some balance. And I will say, like I said, my husband, my fiance was in medical school, and we really didn't see each other that much, maybe once or twice a week. And even then, a lot of times we were studying. And so you do have to make sacrifices and learn how to achieve that balance. We had people who were parents, and they kind of learned how to make it work. And we had people who struggled too, just being away from home and being in a new place. So that's why it kind of helps to be close to home as well. Let's see. Did you know what specialty you wanted to go into initially? If not, when did you realize? So starting school, I knew I liked dermatology, but I was pretty open. Everyone that I talked to told me just wait until clinicals to make your decision. That's when you'll decide what you really want to do. And so once I got to my rotations, I was very open. To be honest, the only thing I didn't like that I just couldn't see myself doing was psychiatry. I just had a really not great experience. I was on an inpatient ward. It was very stressful, a lot of difficult patients, and that wasn't for me at all. So when we didn't have a dermatology rotation planned, but I did have 2 surgical rotations. With my OBGYN, there was a lot of surgery, and then with my general surgery rotation, and I actually got to do some procedures during my ER rotation too. But especially during my surgery rotation, I just really fell in love with it, and I knew that I wanted to do something with my hands. I wanted to be doing procedures, whether that was surgery or smaller things like I do now. And so that was an amazing experience. I learned a ton. And then my surgery preceptor actually helped me to get my job in dermatology. And there I do shave biopsies, punch biopsies. I get to suture. I do some little surgeries. They are real surgeries, but they're small. They're under local anesthesia. Which just means we numb the area. And so removing cysts, removing small skin cancers, just a variety of things. So I love where I'm at. I really couldn't imagine doing anything else, or if I did, I think it probably would be something in surgery if I had that option. Let's see. Oh, that's a hard question. If you could go back in time and tell your college self one thing, what would it be? I think about this question sometimes because I think I would tell myself a lot of things. Oh gosh. I think I had a lot of anxiety, unnecessary anxiety in college, especially over chemistry courses. I shed a lot of unnecessary tears about those classes. I think I spent more time worrying about how I was going to do and if I was going to get into PA school and if I was going to be successful than actually studying and learning the material. And I just tried to cram it and memorize it, and that just wasn't the best idea. So I think I would love to tell myself to just relax and what I was learning instead of stressing out about it. And I think probably my husband and some of my friends could speak to that as well, because I was a mess sometimes. Lots of tears during those years, but still good times. But I do wish sometimes I could take back some of that. Let's see. Any other questions about anything PA related? Give it a couple minutes here, make sure we got everything. How do I study best? I have an interesting study method. So especially in PA school, I have a tendency, I really like to compile all my information. And so I make these really intense study guides where I would go through the lectures, go through books, go back through my notes, go through pretty much everything and type it all up and put it all into this comprehensive study guide. And it's kind of funny, I've had some of the current PA students tell me that they still use my study guides because they've just gotten passed down. But I would always make them, and then I wouldn't actually study from them. It was more just learning through the process of going through and writing and typing that information multiple times. I also really love flashcards, so those are kind of my go-tos. I think in PA school you have to choose your resources wisely because it's easy to get overwhelmed by the amount of books there are and all of that. And so I had 2 books that I focused on the most, and those are the ones that I went back to every single time when I was studying, and I felt like those were the most helpful. Okay, Jenny says, what kind of questions were you asked during your interviews? Were there any unusual or unexpected ones? If so, what were they? Oh gosh. Most interviews that I went on were pretty traditional. So it was more where you'd sit down, they'd ask you the normal stuff. Why do you want to be a PA? Why do you want to go here? What makes you unique? Those kinds of things, just normal stuff. What are your weaknesses? What are your strengths? What does a PA do? One of my interviews did ask more behavioral questions, and those were interesting because they made you think about things in a different way. And when I'm doing mock interviews, that's something that I like to ask those types of questions. So instead of telling me or asking, how do you handle stress? They would say, tell me about a stressful situation you were in and how you handled it. And so I think the way they ask that does a better job of eliciting a story and an example from you than actually just asking the question. So that was an interesting interview. At one of my interviews, they did an activity where they had us, basically they had a fishbowl, and we had to draw a question out of the hat, or not the hat, the bowl, and stand up in front of all the other applicants and all of the faculty and answer it in 1 minute. And so it felt like a Miss America pageant. It was so peculiar, and I think they just wanted to see how we thought on our feet and if we were able to handle being in a situation like that and kind of make the best of it, even though you're super nervous already. And so that was interesting. And they were such random questions. Some were serious, like, what was one? Like, what, if you won the lottery, would you still want to be a PA? Or why should we pick you and not the girl next to you? I mean, just completely random questions. And so that was definitely interesting. For interviews, you really just have to be prepared for anything. I have heard a few crazy questions about insurance or laws that really you shouldn't be expected to know about at this point. And I think some of that is them, the interviewer sometimes trying to just see if they can get you a little bit flustered or see how you respond to a question that you don't know about, because they want you to be honest about those things. So yeah, interviews are definitely stressful and nerve-wracking. Here's another interview question. What was the setup of your interviews? One-on-one panel group. One of them, so my first interview was, let me think. It was, that was when we had to draw a question out of the hat, and then we had to, we had a group activity, so it wasn't really a panel interview or like a group interview. It was more, they gave us a scenario and we had to talk about it and kind of present a decision on it. And then I had a 2-on-1. So I had a faculty member and an alumni PA interviewing me for about 15 to 20 minutes. And then they did a tour and we interacted with the other students as well. And then my second one, we had somewhat of a group panel, I don't know what to call it, but the director basically sat us down and there were 3 applicants and he just asked us a couple questions, not really anything intense. And then I had at that interview 2 one-on-ones with different faculty members. And I actually, at my second interview, I got done and me and my mom went to lunch, and I found out about 15 minutes after I was done that I got accepted to the first school I'd interviewed at, which was my first choice. So kind of a wasted interview, but I did wait to find out if I was accepted. And it was a good experience, so I'm glad I did it. Let's see, any other questions about PA stuff? Give it a minute here. see. How did you go about shadowing PAs? What tips do you have for pre-PA students who don't have many connections to PAs? So when it comes to thinking about your connections, think outside the box. So anyone you know, anyone who's a nurse or a doctor that you've gone to in the past, think of anyone who may have any connections, even if it seems a little far-fetched, and see if they know someone that you can shadow, or if you've shadowed a PA, see if they know of someone else you can shadow. When I was in Athens, I actually went through the phone book and I called every single medical office in Athens, Georgia, and I would call and say, hi, do you have a physician assistant? And they would say yes or no. And if they said yes, I would say, can I come shadow them? Or I would ask to speak to their office manager. That's the best way to get in. So if you leave a message with the receptionist, it's probably not going to get to where it needs to be. But if you're able to speak with or leave a message for the office manager, you have a much higher chance of getting those shadowing opportunities. So that's who you want to talk to. But out of everyone I called in the whole phone book, only one place called me back. So it was a lot of work, but that one place was the dermatology office where I fell in love with dermatology and got a ton of hours. She let me come in one afternoon, either every week or every other week, depending on my schedule, for a whole year. And so I got a lot of really great experience that way. Besides connections, look into your state society, see if they have any options for PAs who will let you come shadow, or see if any hospitals in your area have shadowing programs. Usually there's a lot of paperwork involved with that, but once you get through that, if you can get some hours, that's the goal. When you're looking into shadowing, you really want to try to get shadowing hours in at least 3 different settings. So either different specialties or hospital, outpatient clinic, just different areas, so that you're getting a good variety and that you can show that you understand what a PA does in different roles and that you understand the relationship between a PA and their patient and between a PA and their supervising physician. So just looked at different areas, cold call offices. Shadowing hours are tough. I know they are. Okay, did you take a gap year? I did not. I kind of took a gap semester. I had taken some summer classes, so I was able to graduate in 3.5 years instead of 4. So I graduated in December of 2011, but I'd already been accepted to school. And so then I didn't start school until May of 2012. And so I had some time off, which was really nice. I really appreciated that. We had a lot of people who graduated on Friday and started school on Monday. And so that I can't even imagine. But I did have some time off. I don't think a gap year is a bad idea. I think especially if you're trying to gain experience, because PA school is getting more and more competitive every single year. And so the more experience you have, the better. And once you start, it really, it's intense for those next couple of years. So it's okay to take some time before then. Did you go on medical trips with certain organizations? If so, which ones? Okay. I actually went on one trip in college, or not college, PA school with a group. It was called Rivers of the World, I believe. And it was something that actually a guy in my husband's med school class had put together. And since I was on rotations, they let me go since I would be doing medical work. And so that was a great trip. I was definitely still learning, and something you learn when you're doing medical missions is that you're really limited on what you can do. You a lot of times are limited on medicines, limited on resources, but it makes you kind of think and also realize that there are patients everywhere. So the one I just went to Kenya was with an organization called Me to We, or the We organization, and It was an amazing trip. I would absolutely recommend it. I think they do some pre-med trips, from what I understand. But if you ever have the chance to go on one of those trips, it was very well organized. I felt extremely safe, great accommodations, and great experience in the clinic. They have a really, really cool hospital with really great staff and doctors there who, as much as they want to learn from us, we were able to learn from them too. Do you need a supervising physician during your medical trips? No, not necessarily. There were two doctors and one dermatology resident on my trip. You do, for this one, I did have to have malpractice insurance, but the trip kind of took care of that. As a student, you wouldn't really need any of that. I mean, you're really going to be helping out more than anything. If you do go on a trip, you want to be careful to not do anything that's outside of your scope of practice, even if you're in another country. You want to take those learning opportunities, but you don't want to do anything that would be considered unethical. But yeah, I didn't have to have a supervising physician, and my supervising physicians were completely on board with me going. They were really excited about it, so that was nice. Do I recommend getting research experience? So for PA school, research really isn't that big of a deal. If you were going to do research, I would say you'd want to do something that's more on the clinical side where you're maybe getting to interact with patients more. For medical school, research is very important. They want you to have research in some area. My husband did about a year of biochemistry research, and so that for med school, yes, it is very important, but they don't have the same patient care experience requirements that PA school has. And so while it might be nice, unless it's clinical based, I don't think it's going to help you that much for getting into PA school. Any other questions? Laura. Okay. Not seeing anything else coming in. If y'all have any questions, feel free to email me, savannah@thepaplatform.com, or find me on Instagram @thepaplatform. Send me a message on there or comment, whatever. And then I'm always available. And this was fun. So, oh, I got a question. One. Oh, how would a PA go about becoming a PA educator? This is something I was actually interested in for a while, and I may revisit at some point, but there are different ways. So some programs, you really need to have a couple of years experience at least as a physician assistant, but they'll hire you back on as a PA educator. Once you're hired back on, usually they do want you to go a little bit further in your education and get either a master's or a doctorate of education. But the good thing about that is usually they're going to pay for it too, which is really nice. I don't think I would do any more schooling unless there was somebody covering it. While that would be really nice, but as a PA educator, you're going to have more flexible hours and good vacation. You may take a little bit of a cut in salary, but it's going to be a more predictable job. And if you're working for a public program, a lot of times you'll get like state retirement with that too, if they have that type of program in place. So that's definitely something that I've considered, and it's a really great option, even if you just do it part-time once you're done. Any other questions here? Let's see, I'm not seeing any. I'm gonna go ahead and wrap things up, but again, y'all can contact me at any point if you want to. And then thanks for tuning in and asking your questions. Y'all had some good questions. Everybody have a good night. Oh, I got another one, Jenny. It's okay. Ooh, what would you tell students who are on the fence between PA and MD? That's a hard question. I think, first of all, you need to shadow. I think that shadowing is what will really help you to see the differences and make your decision. If you're not going to be happy in a role where you're not the ultimate decision maker, then you need to go to medical school. If you are okay being part of a team, I don't want to say being the low man on the totem pole because it's not really like that, but I mean, it's more like you're just a team player, then PA would be fine. And it's going to depend on what area you're into. So you may, a PA in a surgical place is going to be a lot different than a PA working in an outpatient clinic. So a surgical PA may just be doing pre-ops and post-ops, whereas they're not really even taking care of their own patients. So you really just need to do your research before you make that decision if you're on the fence. And that is one thing I feel like I missed out on as a PA is the residency experience. Sometimes I wish I had that, but at the same time, I feel like I'm getting that now. I'm only 2 years into my career, and so I'm still learning. And so I feel like there's definitely plus and minuses to both. But yeah, definitely spending time with each PA and MD will help you to make that decision. Yeah. All right. Y'all been great. So I'll be here if y'all need me. Have a good night.